how can I stay grounded in my emotions in high stakes interactions? So our nervous systems get so triggered in these situations, right? Like what's going on? Well, we might get the fight response where we get defensive and go into the inner critic. We might have the flight response where we shut down or we avoid, right? We might have a freeze response where we're overwhelmed or we're indecisive or we're just like the words, we can't find them, we can't form them, they won't come out, right? Or we go into a fawn response where we say yes when we mean no and agree to things in that meeting where like everyone's assigning this thing to you and you're like, wait, but you can't speak up. So now it's yours, right? And the thing is that it's really hard to access the calm, rational part of your mind, right? When you are triggered by whatever response that you've got going on, because your body's getting flooded with the same adrenaline and cortisol that it would if you were like in physical danger. If someone were like, you saw a stranger in an alley in a dark night with a knife, like it's the same things, right? So we have to understand that our brain thinks that these meetings or these places where we are freezing up or shutting down or whatever's going on in these high stakes interactions, we have to understand our brain thinks it's danger and first calm that. And then we engage the prefrontal cortex and we decide how we want these kinds of meetings to go, how we want to show up. We'll focus on every single thing that's in our control. And so that's what I'm going to talk about towards the end. And I also have a workbook for this that I'll share. And if you're watching it on like a replay somewhere later, if you go to my website at unboundandunbothered.com, I think it's under like free guides or free workbooks or something. There's a spot you can find it on the website if you want to go get the workbook later. Okay, so why does this happen? Like what's going on with our socialization? So we're conditioned to prioritize other people's needs, right? Ahead of our own. So it would make sense that like we're going to worry about being likable in this situation. We're going to worry about other people being uncomfortable. We're going to worry about our own discomfort at making someone else uncomfortable by saying no, right? And then for any additional marginalized identity that you're living within, there may be this thing of like, I can't rock the boat. Like I'm barely here, right? Like I can't be the one to rock the boat in this situation. I just have to go along, right? And that's some fuckery there too, right? And so what happens is we disconnect from our own needs and we agree to things that are not in our interest, right? That work against us. And so what are we feeling when this is happening? We're feeling like frustration and anger, like with other people or with ourselves. We're feeling self-doubt and anxiety and insecurity. We're worried about being wrong. And so we're not speaking up unless we're 100% sure we know the answer, or we're worried about not being liked, right? And what would that do if people don't like me? Will I still be able to get things done? That'll be really scary, right? Your brain's giving you all of these signals, right? You will definitely start feeling some resentment if you keep saying yes when you mean no, right? As you see like Chad fail upward with factory level precision, right? While you're working your ass off and feeling taken advantage of. Or you might feel helpless that like, I know what I want to say. I just can't say it in the moment. And you might feel like your body is betraying you and that you don't have the power in the situation to do what you want to do. So how does this make total sense? Why does this make total sense? Well, of course you agree to things that you don't want to do when we're socialized to value cooperation over competition and humbleness over confidence. That makes total sense. Of course you worry about saying the wrong thing if you're held to a different standard than Chad, right? Of course you shut down because you're afraid if you speak up and it's not perfect, then you're going to be judged for being emotional or some other label that is assigned only to women, right? Like, what's the difference between emotional and passionate? Gender, right? Of course you can't think straight when the blood in your brain has gone to your limbs because your brain thinks you're actually going to need to run from a lion, right? Like it senses like that it's like physical danger, and there's actually less blood in your brain in these moments when your nervous system is triggered. And of course you avoid when it doesn't feel safe to push back, right? When you're worried about what the outcome will be if you're not agreeable. And of course, Then we're going to should, could, and would, and judge the hell out of ourselves afterwards for not being able to stand up for ourselves in the moment. Right? It's just a really rough cycle in this one. So, what does this lead to? Well, you might develop a pattern of like dreading or avoiding high stakes interactions, and then that will reinforce your cycle of self doubt and emotional reactivity, right? Or it becomes more and more difficult to communicate authentically or assertively. And then you end up with a bunch of unresolved issues, increased resentment, right? Or a feeling of being unheard or dismissed, right? And like breaking down, like what part of that can we influence, right? And then the worst outcome of this is that Chad gets all the credit and all the raises and all the promotions, and you get more work. That's the outcome we really, really, really want to avoid. Okay, so Amy already dropped the link for the folks that are on the thing, but there's a workbook, and I want to give you two things. I want to talk about what's in the workbook, but I also want to, like, if you're feeling you're in that moment, right? I want you to do one of two things. Both of them will help you get back into your body, which is like if you feel your nervous system activated, you feel that heightened emotion, right? You want to get out of your head and get back into your body. And so there's two things that you can do. Like, particularly like if you're working remote and you go off camera, you can just remind yourself, like, come back into your body and remind yourself and tell yourself, I am safe, or you are safe, right? It makes total sense that you would feel this way, right? Validate your feelings. Anyone in this situation would feel this way. It's totally valid, right? And just let that come, like, get back into your body and let that come down. If you can't go off camera, and you can also just go like scream into a pillow. That was my favorite. Like, scream into a pillow, come right back. But some people don't, that doesn't work for them. The other is like just getting hyper aware of, like, how do my feet feel touching the floor? How does my chair feel against my body? Like, how do my fingers feel on my keyboard? But just get back into your body. Just start noticing, right? Like, how does the waistband of my pants feel around my waist, right? How does my shirt feel against my shoulders? Like, just get back into your body and get out of that nervous system reaction so you can get that blood back into your brain and start being able to, like, solve the problem in real time instead of just shutting down. Okay, so what's in the workbook? In the workbook, it will step by step. What we want to do is we want to start with the outcome that we want, the one that we can control. So, like, I advocated for myself effectively, right? Or I asked for a raise, right? Whatever, but it has to be something that you can control. It can't be like I asked for a raise and I got it, because you don't have control over that other part, right? It can't be that I advocated for myself effectively and I got my way, right? Because we can't totally control that. But what we do is we start with the outcome that we want, the thing that's going to, when we walk out of the room and we're like, I owned that shit. I totally rocked that. That's what we want to, like, own this part of it. And then we work with, like, okay, so for that to happen, what would I need to do in the meeting and not do in the meeting to get that outcome? So, like, not get into my head, stay grounded in my body, listen instead of waiting to talk, right? Not shut down when it seems like it's not going my way, not say yes when I want to say no, right? All of those things, right? All the things that we want to do and not do. And then we have to figure out, how would I need to feel to be able to do those things? It might be calm. It might be confident. It might be neutral. It might be self-assured. There's so many different things. It might be motivated or excited. But the one that I think is the most valuable in these high stakes interactions that keep you in the moment, that keep you grounded, keep you from getting lost in everything that's going on, is curiosity. Curiosity is so powerful because it gives your brain something to do besides freaking the F out. So that's what I really recommend for that. So, and then we have to decide the last part of this workbook. We have to decide, what do I need to believe so that I can feel that way, right? It could be something like, I'm just here to gather information, right? And that might make me feel curious. And that'll keep me engaged. I'll listen instead of waiting to speak. I'll gather, like, all of the things and I will get that outcome that I want, right? Or like now is the perfect time to ask for a raise, right? Because we can't, there is no good or bad time. There's just a time to ask for a raise, right? And then you go through this whole process, right? And if you go into a conversation like that with curiosity, like, I wonder what I would need to do if I get told no. What are the exact things I need to do? What does that mean? What does that mean that I need to be more assertive? What would that look like? Right? That level of curiosity is going to create outcomes where you stay empowered in these situations. So, and then the last thing, if these come up a lot, if you're in a situation where you're in a lot, they all feel high stakes because maybe you're just not in a culture that's like super conducive to like feeling okay. Think about ways to complete the stress cycle. So if you're on my mailing list, I sent out a list of like 100 of them last week. And but like, or just Google, but there's so many different ways to complete the stress cycle. But make sure that you're not just like, oh, I get out of that meeting, I've removed the stressor, because the stress is still there. And then it just comes back the next time you're in that situation. It's not resolved. You need to get it out of your body so that you can go in clean each time that you're dealing with these things. And it's just better for your health, mentally and physically.